Hi there, I'm Joni Eareckson Tada of the Joni and Friends International Disability Center in Southern California. My friends at Through the Roof have invited me to share a few words with you at this special conference because it really is all about enabling the Church of Jesus Christ to become accessible to all, no matter what the disability. And to me, a church that has a vibrant special needs ministry is a church that has the heart of Jesus. Just one look at the Gospels tells us how much Jesus loved people with disabilities. Constantly, Jesus was spending time with people who had handicapping conditions. In every Gospel and on virtually every page, Jesus is ministering to the deaf, he's reaching out to the blind, he's kneeling beside people paralyzed at the pool of Bethesda, and he's even counseling the fathers of little boys with seizures. Our Savior chose to flash his credentials as Messiah through his ministry to people with disabilities. And you and I, we have the same calling. Well, we may not have the same ministry of healing as did Jesus, but we are called to offer a deeper healing to special needs families, a healing of the soul, the sort of healing that helps special needs families understand the goodness of God in the midst of a lot of loss and a lot of pain. Because when that happens in the life of someone with a disability, oh my, God receives so much glory. How so? Well, let me take a few minutes to consider just how disability ministry glorifies, that is, how it magnifies the Lord. Now, I don't mean magnify in the way a microscope magnifies something small so that it looks bigger. I remember when I was a kid, I got one of those, microscope sets for Christmas where you could run outside in winter and find snowflakes and put them on slides and quick run back inside before they melted so you could look at how amazing all these little tiny snowflakes were. A microscope magnifies something small so you can see it better. But when the Bible speaks of magnifying the Lord, it does not mean making something small look large. No, it means making something large appear as it really is. In other words, like a telescope. Think of magnify in the way a telescope makes an already large object appear as it really is, and that is huge. Most people do not see God as huge. To them, God appears to be a tiny and far removed, like the small points of light that you see in a night sky that we call stars. People forget that a star is far bigger and far more magnanimous than we can possibly imagine. We forget that stars are impossibly huge. I mean, they say that there are some stars that equal the size of more than 1 billion suns. And the beauty of a telescope is that it reminds us of how big stars are. A telescope gives us a clearer idea of just how great, how awesome those incredible heavenly bodies are. And here's my point. A church without a disability ministry may not really see how huge God is. They may make assumptions about the glory of God. To them, God's grace seems small, His mercy seems limited, His compassion appears shriveled, and His courage looks undersized. But get this, a disability ministry is a telescopic lens that helps people see how grand and how great and how glorious and awesome and huge God really is. Most of the time, the church sits in the midst of life's joys, dreading the coming sorrows. But disability ministry empowers people to sit in the midst of this world's sorrows and taste the coming joy. And that gives God glory. That magnifies Jesus, who for the joy that was set before him, endured his cross. Most Christians don't live in this day-to-day reality unless they have a disability. Think of that telescope again. We all know that the grace of God is sufficient, but a disability magnifies God's grace. Most people, yes, even many Christians, often see the grace of God as far distant, as small, difficult to comprehend. But when you observe God's grace at work in the life of a quadriplegic woman, or a man with multiple sclerosis, or a child with cerebral palsy, suddenly their smiles show up the grace of God, and God looks huge as He really is. And that brings so much glory to Him that makes much of Jesus. Because when it comes right down to it, isn't our chief aim to glorify God in all that we do? Whether we eat or drink or do disability ministry, it should all be for the glory of God. Even in Luke chapter 14, when the master told his servants to go out into the streets and alleys and find the disabled and bring them in, it was all to showcase his generosity, his mercy, his compassion, and his gracious favor. And this is a wonderful message to share with anyone who has a disability. Oh my goodness. We in our wheelchairs, we have the opportunity to glorify the God of the universe in a way that nobody else can. We, just like a telescope, get to make his grace look large. We get to prove to an unbelieving and skeptical world that God really is worth trusting. We get to prove that he's that huge, that big. Can you see how this elevates even the most seemingly insignificant saint with a disability onto a grand cosmic stage, where the stakes are about as high as you can get, because those stakes are all about the glory of God? This should be our message to people with disabilities. And a disability ministry in a church should magnify God like this, like no other ministry can, because it showcases his grace through affliction, like no other ministry does. I hope that these thoughts invigorate and inspire you today, because we in disability ministry, oh my, we do indeed have a high calling. I want to thank the conference sponsors, the Bishop of Lichfield, the Right Reverend Jonathan Gledhill, and the Diocese of Lichfield. And I want to thank my friends at Through the Roof and all the other participants of Churches for All. Most of all, I want to thank you for carrying this message about how disability ministry is a telescopic lens that magnifies God's glory. I want you to take this message into your disability ministry in your church, reminding people that God permits what he hates, but only to accomplish that which he loves. Christ in us, the hope of glory. From all of us here at the Joni and Friends International Disability Center, God bless you, friends. And I pray that you will have a blessed and a wonderful day.